All right. Welcome to episode 21 of the Make Guitar podcast. Thanks for joining us. Mitch, how are you doing today?
I think I'm doing pretty good today.
Good.
Yeah. How are you?
Doing all right. Yeah, things are good.
Oh, great. Yeah. So what are you listening to these days?
Well, that compilation that you sent out last week, there was a link at the beginning of it to My Bloody Valentine's official website. So I went there and I was like, you know what? I never listened to My Bloody Valentine's 2013 album MBV. So so I started signing up for it and I was like, I don't know. I don't think I want to give these guys my credit card. So I bought it on iTunes. It's not on Bandcamp. But it's pretty cool. I recommend giving it a listen. It's very My Bloody Valentine.
Go figure.
Yeah, I mean, there's some differences that you'll hear, and it kind of got me thinking. Like, I don't think this album did well at all. Like, I never heard anybody talk about it, even though it's got that My Bloody Valentine sound. There's I would say like the most obvious differences are there's some kind of keyboard driven songs on it that don't sound like just samples, because that was a big part of the original sound, was just a lot of samples that the drummer would trigger. But yeah, these sound more like like synthesizer parts and less like a sampled guitar or some other kind of like atmospheric sound.
Huh. I'll have to go check it out. I was looking for that Yellow album, the Loveless Yellow album, and it's impossible to get.
Oh no, really?
I thought you could get it. I was like, I'm gonna just go get this record, because I'd listened to it on YouTube, and then I thought like, oh, it'd be great to have just like to listen to anywhere, because you can't listen to YouTube like from your phone. I mean, you can, but like if you switch to another app or you close the phone, then it stops playing, which is totally annoying, right? So,
Right.
You can't have it playing in the background, So I thought, well, I'll just buy the record because I enjoyed it. And then I realized like I couldn't find a digital version of the record. And I guess it came out on CD at some point. It's like some Japanese release, so you'd have to get like, I don't know, some like import label or something, right? And so it was really hard to get. And then you could find copies of it, but it would be one of those ridiculous situations where you're paying like $46 for a CD.
Yeah. Is that just for the CD, or that would be the shipping? Because I mean, if you had to like have it shipped from Japan.
I forget. I just saw somewhere it was like on Amazon used for $46 or, some ridiculous amount. It was like, it was just stupid. I was like, I'm not going to pay that much,
Mm-hmm.
I would have bought it though if I could get it digital, like if there was a digital version of it. And I looked all over, and then the funny thing is I thought, well, okay, screw it. Maybe I'll just look up some of these bands that are on the record and then I could just get their album,
Yeah.
And they were actually hard to find too. It was like a lot of the bands, either I don't know, it was just really hard to get the music from them, I mean, Boris and like Shonen Knife you can get, right? They're around, but then all those other bands are, I guess they're small enough or they're just not, I don't know, they just haven't recorded enough music where it's hard to, it makes it hard to get their music,
Right. Well, it's also, I think there are a lot of bands that if they're not performing the songs in English, they don't think that there's a market for their music in other countries or in America and the rest of the world.
Yeah, I could see that. Plus, like, bands like Boris, like they don't really do that Loveless kind of sound. They covered the song, so like, you might get a band and they might be totally different than what they sounded on that record,
Mm-hmm.
But I was willing to take some chances there, just for fun. But yeah, it was really hard to get, So actually, I just listened to Loveless, like the original. I couldn't get the covers, I was like, okay, well, I'll just listen to the original. So I listened to that, and I listened to the Cocteau Twins, and then what else? Then I listened to King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. Like those guys are prolific. Like,
Yeah.
they come out with like 4 or 5 albums a year, and like I can't even keep up with them all. They're just putting out so much music. But I just listened to their most recent album. You
And
know,
what are they doing on their most recent album?
it's super accessible. It's like really like almost normal. Like
Oh wow. Okay.
it's like, you know, because they're pretty weird sometimes, you know, like
Yeah.
very musical, but kind of a little out there or on the fringe, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like with the microtonal stuff, like I think they did an album, Microtonal Flying Banana or something like that, that was like all microtonal instruments, you know. This was
What?
like very accessible. You should listen to it. It was pretty good.
Okay, I'll give it a shot. Yeah, I get the impression that King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard take inspiration wherever they can get it, because they're so, you know, they're always recording. Um, and I saw an interview with Alton Gunn, and they said that they were at South by Southwest, or they were on tour with King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. And then when I heard what King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard did after that tour, it sounded just like Elton Gunn. So I'm just like, oh, they just rip off everybody wherever they go. I mean, no disrespect. I mean, great artists steal, but like if you're going to be recording that much, you gotta,
Yeah.
use what you can.
Actually, you know, that quote is really funny, okay, because it's not what you think. I always thought that that was uh, it was Picasso, right?
Mm.
And and then I read something about it, and they said it actually wasn't Picasso.
He
Like
stole it.
he may have said it. Yeah, yeah, he may have said it, but they said it was T.S. Eliot, and T.S. Eliot said, I just looked it up on the internet, right? T.S. Eliot said, immature poets imitate, mature poets steal, bad poets deface what they take, and good poets make it into something better, or at least something different. The good poet welds his theft into a whole of feeling which is unique, utterly different than that from which it was torn. Right? And I guess they kind of also credit Steve Jobs with that, you know, great artist steal thing, but the T.S. Eliot one, I think, really gets to the heart of it. You know, like you can borrow ideas, but then when you weld them into your creation, you know, people maybe don't, if you're doing a good job anyway, people don't recognize them anymore.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, and I think we talked about this last week that, like even in classical music, back in the good old days, like Handel or whatever, he would just like grab themes from other composers, because they were, they're proven, just reuse them, recontextualize them, and make them your own. I don't think there was they didn't have like a climate of, lawsuits over, 7 notes of, copying. Like, it's ridiculous nowadays what people will try to get away with as a lawsuit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like it's like almost like the patent trolls in music, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I think people should get credit for what they've done, but I think also like, you know, at some point it also stifles like the creation of new stuff, right? If you're like, oh shoot, I got to do something totally different than what they did, you know, like I don't know.
Yeah, no, I read that George Harrison was really just kind of disillusioned, and well, he was a little bruised after that My Sweet Lord, He's So Fine lawsuit, which took, years of his life to finally get through, and of course, millions of dollars.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess Led Zeppelin went through that too, but I think they decided to pay. So they like, and in a lot of ways, like they did borrow a lot of some of those songs. You know, there's a lot of stuff that Jimmy Page borrowed. I saw like a guy break it down on a video on YouTube that where it was kind of like a surprising amount of music that Jimmy Page borrowed from, you know. But I guess like some of those blues guys, like I forget who, but they took them to court, and at some point Led Zeppelin was just like, oh, forget it, we'll just pay, you know. I mean, and I don't think they were like, oh, forget it, we're just fed up, you know. They were just like, well, you know,
You caught
actually, Yeah, like maybe this person we did borrow, like, and I think that's the impression I got, is that they just decided, you know what, and then being in court is not fun. So, and they're like, we just made all this money anyway, we might as well give some over.
Right. And so many bands from that time, like like the Rolling Stones, they would promote those musicians that inspired them. They would bring them on stage with them, and try to promote the careers that went before them. I mean, you even hear about it with like Steve Miller and ZZ Top. They're on this mission to educate people about the blues. I mean,
Yeah.
when I was a kid, I just thought like ZZ Top was all original. Like they invented that sound.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you're young, you don't have a broad enough picture of the world, to
Yeah.
to really know what's going on. You got to borrow a couple things and steal a few things yourself, and then you realize, hey, shit, everybody's doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so yeah, that's what I was listening to. I listened to that King Gizzard and Lizard Wizard record. It was pretty good. So I enjoyed it anyway. So,
Right on. All
yeah.
right, everyone, go listen to the King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. Is it on Bandcamp? I bet it's not.
They're on Bandcamp.
Oh, are they? Okay, good.
Yeah, actually, I'm
Good
gonna
for them.
give them credit for that, because like a lot of bands, like even like kind of mid-tier bands, like are not on Bandcamp, and then it's really hard to get to them. And then the top tier bands that aren't even that great, but somehow they're top tier because they had a hit at some point,
Mhm.
they're not on Bandcamp because I don't know why. They're just, I guess they're just like, we're not giving nothing away for free.
Yeah, yeah, or maybe they're just not familiar with it. Sometimes there's bands like I heard this band called Savages. I actually, through the movie Ex Machina or Ex Machina, however you want to say it, and they have a song in the credits of that movie, and it's a really cool song. And I thought they are totally like a Bandcamp band. They should be, but they're not. They're not there.
Yeah, could be like contractual things too. Maybe they got a record deal, and the record company is like, we're not doing Bandcamp. Sorry, man.
Yeah, that could
You're
be.
not allowed to do Bandcamp. It says so right here on page 37 of the contract.
Yeah, no, I bet you're right.
And you
It's like,
signed in blood.
yeah, yeah, but it's interesting, like how much control has been given over to musicians in the kind of intervening years since the Beatles, like the Beatles, who had that famously terrible record deal. And like, they were sort of the employees of the guys in suits, like I was just reading an article about how their first single, I can't remember the name of their, well, because there's George Martin, and who was their producer, right? Or their manager. He was the producer.
Yeah.
And like they hired George and the other guy, they hired a different drummer. They hired a professional drummer, even though the Beatles had already decided to fire Pete Best and bring Ringo in, who they met. And so Ringo showed up, and there's somebody else sitting in his chair, and he wasn't allowed to play on the first single. Well, they let him play the maracas. But like nowadays, like as soon as a band like has a hit, or like as soon as they're signed, they're given all this control. Maybe not about things like how the distribution is done, but like their handlers are very soft hands with bands nowadays.
Sometimes, yeah, I don't know a lot about it, but yeah, I've heard nowadays like people getting away with just like who knows what, like just like the craziest things.
Yeah, well, like the My Bloody Valentine thing. Like, okay, so as far as I know, there was nothing that came between Loveless and MBV, and I think Loveless came out in like, I don't know, was that 95, 96, something like that, like way back in the 90s, and MBV came out in 2013. And their record company kept asking them, where's the record? And Kevin Shields would just be like, you just like quote My Bloody Valentine songs, like "To Hear Knows When." Like he wouldn't answer them. He just put them off.
Yeah, that's funny. You know, because in a normal job, you get that would kind of get you fired, or you'd be talking to HR.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you know. Yeah. So, hey, you know, we were talking earlier about that guitar. You know, you put that replacement neck on it.
Oh yeah, this guitar.
I thought that was really interesting. I like the idea that you put the the 24 and 3/4 inch scale, like short scale, but not 24-inch short. You know, it's not the Fender short scale. It's like the Gibson scale on the Fender, Stratocaster scale guitar, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, no, I mean it was kind of it was a decision. It was kind of like made out of necessity. I decided I wanted a short scale guitar, but I had bought this body from Roster Guitars, and it's routed for a Strat neck, so a 25.5-inch neck. And I was like, I kind of want a short. I'd like a Jaguar, but then of course a conversion neck for a Strat, like the kind of common conversion neck for a Strat, is to the Gibson scale. So so I found this on eBay. I don't remember who made it, but I think it's all documented on our channel. I think like if you go back to some of the early videos on the channel, I have links to all the parts.
Oh, cool. I should look into that because I actually like that Gibson scale. Like I like playing that scale, It's like a good size. The Fender scale, the strings are longer, you got bigger reach.
Yeah. I have this other Jazzmaster that I put together from like Guitar Fetish parts and a Mighty Mite Strat neck, and I brought it home to do some modifications on it. I was playing it. It's like, oh, it's really hard. I mean, it's not just like the added stretch between the frets. I mean, it's not even that much, but yeah, just all the tension on the strings.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Lately, I've just been tuning everything down. I just like I got this guitar out just the other day, and it was tuned to standard, and I was like, "Oh my God, these strings are just so tight. Ouch! Oh, my fingers." So I tuned it down to D, like just all the strings down a whole step.
That's yeah. You should make it easy on yourself.
Yeah, right. D's a good key. I like.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a bad key to play in.
Right. Yeah, I mean, so I got the baritone, but the baritone's almost like it's almost like playing a bass. Because that B string, I'll call it a B string, the topmost string, it's really thicker than it needs to be. You can just do that with a regular guitar. I mean, B's pretty low. You'd have some pretty floppy action, but
yeah, that's interesting because I guess like the physics of it, there's like three things. So you have like the mass of the string, so that's like the diameter. There's the length of the string, and then there's the tension. So if you need to play a note in any particular frequency, you can change those three variables. But like for us, for guitars, the only thing we can change is the tension and the length, right? So you can't change the tension when you're playing, so really you just change the length, right? And that gives you the note that you want, right? But like when you set up your guitar, you get to choose, so you can tune down to like a lower, like less tension, but at that point then like the string can get really floppy, so you could compensate for that by getting a heavier gauge string, right? So there's I think where the balance is, like if you tune your baritone, depending on the length and how far you tune down, are the strings too floppy? So if they're too floppy, maybe you got to go up a gauge.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think what I'll probably do is try to find a lighter bass string for the baritone, because I don't think it needs to be as big as it is, and the rest of them can be just be like a normal. Like I use the pink strings, the GHS in the pink pack, the nines.
But
So I could just
you use
get the
those on
same.
the baritone?
No, I use those on everything else,
Oh, okay,
but
okay, yeah.
I could just use like a set of those without the top E string or the bottom E string, and then just get like a custom gauge for the top, for the bass string.
Oh yeah, you didn't buy a like just a baritone set.
I did buy a baritone
Okay.
set, and
Oh,
I
but you
was
didn't
like,
like that.
I think they're a
Okay.
little. I think it's a little heavy-handed. I
Huh.
don't know if they need to be like that.
Yeah. Because I have a set of baritone strings and they're these like kind of balanced tension strings. So they're supposed to, the gauges are adjusted a little bit. So all the strings, if you tune to kind of a standard tuning, they all have about the same tension.
Okay.
Right. But I actually don't like it because it makes the heavier strings like really heavy, like they're super heavy. I forget what the gauge is because like the baritones are kind of weird gauges. It's not like the standard guitar gauge, you know. I'm not super familiar with the numbers there, but
Yeah. Well, it's also a longer neck, so that's the
yeah.
other challenge.
Yeah, I think mine is like 27 inches, I think is the length.
I think mine's the same. Mine is it's an actual subsonic neck.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't say it anywhere on it, but it is this. It's branded the same.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, we should do a baritone issue, right? Because I every once in a while I get the baritone out and play it, and it's kind of fun. It's kind of inspiring. Like I play something different. It sounds
Mm-hmm.
different, you know. Though I don't play the baritone all the time. It just kind of sits over there most of the time. And every once in a while, like once a year or something, I break it out just to change things up. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a mood thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm feeling low.
Yeah.
Low.
Feeling very baritone.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
Kind of Barry White or something, you know.
Yeah. Or morphine.
More.
Yeah. Well, I read some quote by Mark Sandman. They're asking him like, well, you kind of sing in a baritone, and it's like the sax guy plays like a baritone sax, and you play in that baritone range on the bass, and he's like, yeah, we're kind of a baritone group.
Yeah, I should listen to some Morphine. I should
They're a
get
really
it.
cool band.
Yeah,
So,
I got to put that on my listening list, you know. Yeah, actually, speaking of weird guitar effect things, I had I guess I put it away, but I had that ugly face out and I was trying to do kind of like I don't know, like a kind of a wall of sound kind of recording with the ugly face, you know.
hmm.
Just to demo the pedal, you know, and because it makes a really good like kind of wall of sound. But I made like 3 tracks, but I did them all with the ugly face. And the one bummer with it is like it's hard to tell the different tracks apart because they all fit together so well because you know the pedal just puts out like a square wave.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of dynamic there. It's just like on or it's off. It can have like some motion in there because it has that envelope, you know, but otherwise everything's like a square, like just total square wave, you know. So I don't know. It was kind of fun. I'm still working on that though. It's not quite done yet.
Well, I'm anxious to see it. It is a fuzz. But it's a very unique sounding fuzz.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought actually, you know what I should do? The real thing I should do is I should do one track that's ugly face and then do another track that's just like regular clean guitar. Because that would be a real distinction. You know, you could really tell. It'd be like a lot of contrast between the two. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, our friend Dustin, he sent me or he showed me a comparison video where he played um the ugly face, and then he played the same thing on the, what is it, the 22/7 that I think he got from you.
Yeah.
And the 22/7 definitely is more musical.
Oh yeah.
But it's like the ugly face has this sort of like, it's really distinctive. It'd be a great intro or something like that. Intro or an interlude or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like a good effect for that one spot, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Like, or it could be a layer, you know. It could also be like a layer or a pad or something.
Right.
It's not a
Right.
smooth pad, but you know, it's like could just be this kind of, you know, fuzz cloud that everything floats on top of, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. Yeah. I've been playing a lot with the fuzz, the woolly mammoth. And
Oh yeah, Woolly Mammoth is mighty. I love the Woolly Mammoth.
Yeah.
It's meant for bass. They kind of sell it as a bass fuzz, but I think it sounds great with guitar. Like, I just think it's like an awesome guitar fuzz.
Yeah, you know, interestingly enough, as a bass pedal, I thought it caused um, my sound to just disappear in the mix when we were
Yeah.
playing in the band. I think because we were playing at pretty high volumes, and I couldn't really keep up. So um, I've ended up using it more on guitar, and you know, I think it's really great for melodic stuff as well as, you know, for, you know, heavy power chords and all that.
Yeah. I think you disappear because you lose the dynamic because it's pretty compressed, like the sound.
Right.
So you don't have that like spike where you hit a note and it just boom, like it just stands out at that point. Instead, like
Right.
everything's just it's just like fuzz, like super loud. Then you just kind of blend in unless you're like really loud.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, compression is really common on bass anyways, but I think, yeah, the Woolly or the fuzz takes it to kind of an extreme
Yeah.
where there's no beginning and end to the notes. It's just a constant
Yeah.
line.
Yeah. Yeah. It could also be that you lose some bass going through the fuzz.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So
I
the
think so.
bass, like even though it's a bass fuzz, it actually doesn't have the super sub low note, that super, I don't know, subsonic frequencies that you get, they kind of get filtered out.
Right. But in contrast, on the guitar, it seems to add some bass.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty like woolly, like
Yeah.
it's in the
Yeah.
name. It's just
It's
like
in
it
the
does
name.
sound super hairy,
Mm-hmm.
super thick. You could
Mm-hmm.
like cut it with a knife.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or
But you know,
scissors.
whatever you've got.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it got me thinking about how fuzz is used. Like, I listen to a lot of 60s music from, um, especially like 60s music from other countries, like Asian countries and France. And uh, there was a time in the 60s where the fuzz, it hadn't been established as this like heavy metal sound. Um, so so I thought that would be kind of interesting to talk about, like, can you use fuzz in like an easy listening context?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
it's not thought of that way, but I mean, so I was familiar with some songs that had fuzz in it, and so I started seeking out um some additional things. And I'd heard this story before, but there was that Buck Owens song where there was an incident with the um oh no, so the Marty Robbins song.
Yeah.
And you sent me that video about the mixing desk that had like blown a tube or something.
Yeah, I guess the company that made this mixing console back in the 50s or something, they were doing some kind of transition, so they'd kind of use some poor quality parts. And so they kind of described it as maybe the transformer was going bad. I don't know. It was
Okay.
a tube mixing desk.
Right. Well, it definitely doesn't sound like a big muff. It's a very different
No.
kind of fuzz. It does
Yeah,
sound
yeah,
almost like a problem. But you know, it's cool at the same time.
yeah. Yeah, they said like when they recorded that song, that with Marty Robbins, I forget what was the song. It was like, what was the title of it?
Um, don't worry.
Yeah, don't worry. Yeah. So when they recorded that, there was something wrong with the mixing desk, and when people listened to it, they were like, "Oh my God, what's wrong?" Like this is not what it's supposed to sound like. But then the next day they came back and listened to it, and they're like, "Well, there's not enough time to record this, but maybe it sounds okay." And so, like, right, so they let it go, and then people were like, "Hey, where'd you get that sound?" Right.
You know, I think they might have talked about this in the pedal musical. That might have
Oh,
been where I heard about it before.
you might be right. You might be right. They did like kind of a like reenactment of the of the
Yeah.
moment. But it was like that Josh guy and the other guy that he works with, the guy that one of those guys that plays the drums or something with him, you know.
Yeah.
Huddle the Musical, got it. We'll plug it. It was pretty
Yeah.
good, pretty
Yeah.
entertaining.
Yeah. They really put in the work.
Yeah. Yeah. In that video, they said that, you know, the Marty Robbins guy and whoever was producing him, like people started asking for the sound and they were like, oh, we got this thing that other people don't have, you know, so they were kind of playing it up. And then they said that they talked to Gibson and Gibson was like, we want that sound. And so they just whipped up a circuit and brought it into Gibson and Gibson was like, we'll take it. They just like, you know, and so then Gibson came out with the Maestro fuzz tone.
Aha. Okay.
Right, which is one of the early pedals. I looked up the schematic for that and it's kind of interesting. It's just like a tone bender. It's got like 3 transistors, you know, they're all PNP, like kind of classic tone bender, germanium style fuzz, but it's got a knob, the fuzz knob, and it basically kind of, to me, it looks like it misbiases the first transistor, right? So it gets it kind of out of its bias zone. And so you get kind of a more gated, zippery kind of tone from it, you know?
That's interesting. I need to look at or listen to Don't Worry again and kind of analyze the sound because it's very lo-fi sounding, but I didn't really, you know, I don't recall it having that kind of like that character of fuzz where it's very, you know, kind of clipped.
Yeah, well, you know what's funny about that is that sound doesn't really sound like a fuzz pedal. It sounds like something else, but similar, you know, and it doesn't sound like amp distortion. It's a kind of a unique sound. What I think is interesting there is, and I think the guy, he played it on a baritone too, so it's like it's a lot
Right.
lower. It's in a lower register, you know, so it also sounds a little different for that reason. Um, but what I think is interesting is that they came up with a new sound. They weren't trying to recreate an existing sound. And then, you know, they kind of let their ears guide them, you know, so they, at first they didn't like it, but then they took a second listen and then they were like, you know, actually, you know, maybe that's not so bad. We'll stick with it, you know? And, and I think that that's like what can inspire people. Like maybe like if you have a sound, it doesn't matter like getting the pedal that someone else owns or something like that, but you can just take the stuff you have or, you know, turn the knobs in some way that is unexpected and it sounds different. But maybe if you can use your ears and say like, you know, actually, you know, maybe that does sound okay, even if it is different, you know?
Yeah. No, I agree. I was watching, I think it might have been a Rhett Schull video, and he was talking about like the worst guitar tones in pop history or something. And something I never thought about before, but the guitar solo in Billie Jean by Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
It's basically like a guitar plugged right into a recording desk. It's not even it doesn't have any effects on it. It's very, very dry and it's pretty quacky. And well, that's not a sound that took off, but it was the right sound for that song. Like you can't imagine that with some kind of like, you know, like chorus or delay or anything on it. It's just like a very super dry, kind of a unpleasant, I mean, unappealing, unappealing. Not, it's not unpleasant, but it's funky, you know?
Yeah. Okay. Funky. There we go. But I was going to
Yeah.
say, do you think that the sound was part of the story? Do you think it was telling the story of Billie Jean, you know,
Well,
who
I
was
think
not his lover, but was pregnant with the child, you know, and all that stuff?
you know, perhaps on a like a subliminal level, because I believe that they tried to re-record it, but they couldn't get the mojo of the original performance,
Oh, funny. Yeah. You know,
which
there's
is
a,
similar to the Marty Robbins story, I think.
yeah, maybe. Yeah. There's a thing called a reamp. I don't know if you're familiar with this. It's basically like a little box that's got a
Mm-hmm.
transformer in it. And the idea is you record something and then but just like you just record it dry, right? And then when you play it back, you send it through the reamp box and the reamp box kind of acts like your guitar. So essentially you could like, the idea is like you could recreate the the signal coming from an instrument, but it's recorded. So what's cool about that is you could record something, play it through the reamp, and then plug different effects into the reamp box, and it would be like you were doing the same performance again, but through a different set of effects. You know, nowadays everybody does all that stuff digitally because you just record something and then the digital effects are layered on top, you know.
Right. Yeah. I wonder if they didn't have the reamp back in 1984 or whenever that was recorded.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't own one. I saw one, a guy had one once, and it kind of, that's what it sounded like he was explaining to me. I don't know when the reamp came out, you know. Yeah, I don't know when they came out, you know. So I don't really know anything about the history of that.
Well, maybe we'll talk about it on a future episode. The reamp.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it could be.
Who knows? You know. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see. So, what else? Do we have any good projects this week?
Well, I have to, as far as projects go, I have to program some drum tracks on my Korg Volca Beats is what it's called. The Korg Volca Beats. Right now I've been kind of rocking the factory Beats. Yeah, I'm kind of, you know, it doesn't work for all the songs that I'm playing. So I got to program some new stuff. That's going to take a little time.
Yeah. Speaking of that, it's funny you should be doing that because I was actually just playing with the DFAM over here.
Oh,
see it over here.
Right on.
The DFAM on the desk there. I actually have it.
Yeah, it's off camera.
I don't know if you can hear that.
Now I can hear it just a little bit.
So I was goofing around with the DFAM. You know, so that's what I was doing with the DFAM. Yeah, DFAM is okay. It's kind of fun, you know. It's like it's kind of like a Moog, like a little mini synthesizer that does like percussion kind of sounds, and it's got a sequencer in it.
Is it in its own box or is it in a Eurorack space?
Well, it's kind of meant to play with the Eurorack stuff, and the height of it is the 3U, like the Eurorack, like most Eurorack stuff, but it comes in its own little boat. You know, it comes in a little box, and it's got a power supply, so you can just plug it into the wall.
Cool. Okay, so you could just bring it to practice or whatever.
You could, yeah. And it's got a little patch bay on it, so you know, maybe like, I don't know how many. It's like 24 different little patch points, so you can patch it to, and you could patch it into your Eurorack stuff, you know, or self patch it, you know.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah, this thing. I'm just unplug it, but it has right on the face, it's got a sync in and out, so you can, you know, sync it up with Eurorack things or like the Micro Freak, which is what I use it with. And It's got MIDI in. So
yeah, really, I haven't done much with MIDI. I don't really use MIDI.
I haven't done anything with MIDI for a while, aside from syncing up the Micro Freak, and you know, that's kind of just a no-brainer. Basically, the Micro Freak turns it on when the arpeggiator is on, and it just loops a drum track.
Oh, that's cool. I'm glad that they play well together.
Yeah, it's really easy once you know how to do it.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
There's a video on YouTube about how to sync up your Micro Freak with a drum, with a Korg Beats or whatever. The other one is called Drum is the other one. Yeah,
there's a video on YouTube for anything.
Almost everything. Actually, I was looking for a particular song for our Fuzz discussion today.
Yeah.
There's this cool song. I think it's probably a cover of If You've Got Leaving on Your Mind by Patsy Cline, but it's in Japanese. It's by Sakura and the Quests, and well, I'll just tell you what the name of it is, but it's not on YouTube at all. There's another version of it. It's called Aku Kechewa. Probably not. Yeah, it's probably not a very good pronunciation, but it's got a really great fuzz solo, and I'll include some other links to like uses of fuzz in, you know, kind of like easy listening or non-heavy music, this great song by François Hardy. that apparently you found out by reading the comments on YouTube, uh, that the solo is, or actually the guitar, probably all of it, is played by Jimmy Page.
Yeah, it's super fuzz tone too.
Yeah, yeah. It's just, it starts out that way, but it's a very, Francois Hardy, easy listening kind of a song. It's
Yeah,
called Je ne tens plus personne, or however you say that. Um,
nice.
I
Yeah, that
also
was a
link.
good one too.
Yeah, it's a really cool solo, and it's a, just like, it has a pretty mighty sound, just, but it's soft. It's not a heavy song. It's slow and, romantic or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. Kind of reminds me a lot of that what like dengue fever, and like
Mm-hmm.
dengue fever took a lot of inspiration from like, I don't know, Cambodian pop from the 50s and 60s or whatever, right? And then they kind of oftentimes have like kind of a fuzz tone guitar sound in there, and it's kind of cool, you know?
Yeah, it's really interesting that like fuzz was so big in Asia. There's
Yeah,
a lot of like there's a lot of cool like Chinese like, what, there were like tea dances. Like there was this explosion of young bands in the 60s mostly, and they would just play these parties, and kids would come out and dance, um, and then a lot of those bands dissolved and people went about their careers and went to school and things like that. But for a while there was this explosion, kind of like a, well, what happened everywhere in the 60s, just like music became really accessible. um, I suppose that's just what happens. There was a lot of gear on the scene, like that, like the Tyco company, um, making a more affordable gear. Um, and Yeah, like, I think everyone was inspired by the Beatles, and earlier, like Elvis, and Cliff Richards and the Shadows and all that stuff.
yeah.
Um,
What was it like, the Beatles, didn't they get like that fuzz tone on Revolution? It has like an amazing fuzz tone sound, right? But I think they got that like just plugging directly into the console,
oh, interesting.
you
Okay,
know?
yeah,
I don't
I
think they
don't
used the pedal.
I don't know the story of that at all. I'll have to look that up because it's a very fuzz. That's like a traditional like rock and fuzz sound.
Oh yeah, it's like a great sound, you know? Yeah, and I guess like Satisfaction though is a fuzz pedal, isn't it? I
I
forget.
think it is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a total fuzz pedal, you know? Bam, bam, you know? And it's funny is like when you think about that, if you just play those two notes, I think originally all those fuzz pedals were not sold as like rock. They were sold as like, make your guitar sound like a horn. And the
Mm-hmm.
Maestro fuzz tone, I saw an ad for it, from way back when, like 1960 or something, and they were pretty much saying like, oh yeah, make your guitar sound like a French horn, or make it sound like like an alto saxophone, or make it sound like a cello. Like that was how they sold it. They didn't say like make you sound like, because I guess the rock heroes had not been invented yet, so they didn't say like make you sound like Jimmy Page, like, which is
Right.
now how they'd sell it.
Yeah. No, it's really funny that like, I think it was also in the pedal, the musical, or something on JHS. They said that the one of those pedals was marketed by having a picture of a horn player on the box or in the
Yeah,
ads.
yeah. Well, there's a pedal. It's kind of an octave fuzz. It's called the Brass Master, which is like a classic. I think that might be Maestro, like the Maestro Brass Master, maybe. But Brass Master, like they named it because they were like sound like a horn, like sound like the brass section with your guitar, right? That was the selling point.
I mean, I never thought about it. Like, the first time I heard Satisfaction, it didn't occur to me that that was like the horn part, but now it totally makes sense. Now that you know it, you can't unknow it.
Yeah. Well, I don't think like, Keith Richards was like, I want to sound like a horn. I think he
I
was
don't
just,
know.
he just like was heard the sound and was like, hey, that sounds great.
I actually think that he was trying to emulate a horn section in
Oh,
that part,
maybe.
because if you imagine it like in a, imagine if that had been done by a group that had a horn section, like maybe like a Motown band or something like that. You know, you can
Yeah,
totally see it.
Yeah, I could totally actually see the horn section do that, you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, nowadays, you know, instead of, you know, trying to sound like a horn or trying to sound like your Guitar Heroes, like I want to sound like something, you know, kind of more existential, like, you know, sound like traveling through a black hole, or,
Right.
you know,
Right.
I want to sound like, you know, like I don't know, like searching your soul in the center of a trip across the universe. You know, you're halfway through your 3,000 light year distance and you're
Mm-hmm.
asking yourself, how did I get here?
Yeah.
What
Well,
am
and
I
then you might
doing
want to
out in
bring a little
space?
delay and wah with you on your journey.
Oh yeah, maybe, you know.
But you know, it's like one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this because you know, it's like I've been playing with that fuzz and kind of thinking like you shouldn't let your choice of pedals dictate the kind of music that you play.
Okay.
You know, there's all kinds of things that you can do with, you know, I mean, if you haven't tried a fuzz pedal, you should definitely give one a shot.
Yeah.
Um, um, yeah, I was curious, like was what was uh what was Buck Owens thinking when he recorded "Who's Gonna Mow Your Grass"?
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know if we can get into that one, you know, because we're like an all ages show, you know.
Yeah, well, you know, on the video that I found, so I found this on the list of on. This is a great website. It's called Fuzz Quest. It's a blog, and
Oh, I
it's
gotta
the
go check that out.
101 best fuzz songs. And so I followed a link from there to YouTube, and they had a video of Buck Owens playing that song on Hee Haw, but it didn't have the fuzz. And all these people in the comments were like, "Where's the fuzz?" And they're like, "No, they made it family friendly." so so then I went and found the original or a remastered version of the song with the fuzz on it. Um, and it's really cool.
Cool.
So
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go check that out, right?
yeah, I'll put a link in the description below to all of these things.
Yeah, I just found that Fuzz Quest blog. I have to go check that out. I like that just on a related note, I forget the name, but it's like a blog where the guy just prints up, like he just shows weird guitars. I don't know if you know that
Mm-hmm.
one, you know, and he's like, there'll be like the Batman guitar, like the, you know, Batmobile guitar, and like
I don't think I've seen this.
weird guitars that have been like from Russia, you know, like weird electric guitars, or like weird guitars that have been modified in weird ways. Like he's just
Mm-hmm.
like, I saw this on eBay, you know, like, right. I'll go find that one because it's pretty good. Like I just
Yeah,
like
I'd
to
like to check that
surf
out.
it, and just because he's got like all these weird instruments, you know, it's just fun to look at, you know.
That's cool. There's this guy, he makes a bunch of guitars out of like hollow core doors and stuff like that. He usually uses like CNC machines to do everything. Tim Sway. And he recently got like handed a few like weird Russian guitars, and they're super weird. Like there's one that just sort of looks like it kind of accidentally looks uh like a Strat pickguard. Like it's not really that, but it's just like this tiny little weird body, and it has some switches on it, things that you don't know what they're supposed to do. And he got it without the neck, so he was going to try to. Well, that was a bass, but he's going to try to make it into a playable instrument. But yeah, like Russia had some weird guitars. You know, Japan, like Taisco made a bunch of weird guitars with a bunch of miscellaneous switches. Vox made some really weird guitars with too many controls on them.
Oh yeah, I'm actually a big fan of that Phantom shape. Like I want to make.
Yeah,
I don't know if I want to buy one, but I want to try and make one because it's actually, the shape is not hard to do.
it's not the oval shaped one. It's the one with the square kind of like the pointy edges.
Yeah, it's kind of like quadrilateral, let's call it.
Yeah,
Like it's got, wait, no, wait, maybe it's more than four sides.
yeah, it's got like five at least.
Yeah, maybe it's got five sides, you know? Like, yeah, I just like the shape of it. It's very space aged, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the blog I'm thinking of is called Guitars with a Z
Guitars with a Z.
at Blogspot. It's
Okay.
guitars MBV.blogspot.com.
All right. I'll link it in the description.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, it's pretty fun. You know, it's got like a lot of weirdo stuff, so what else? Let's see. So what are we working on this week? You got any plans?
Well, if I get to it, I'm going to film me routing the holes for my for my pickup on the bass. But yeah, first priority, make some beats.
Make some beats. Nice.
Yeah.
I got some.
How about you? What are you working on?
Working on this beat. I'm just kidding.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear it. I was probably.
It's all right. we were talking with Steve last week, and he was talking about this like microcontroller like thing, DSP chip like in a guitar pedal, and that kind of was like I was like, I gotta try that. So I bought the circuit board. The parts on here are not hard to get except for the microcontroller. I tried to buy it and they were sold out. So I'm waiting for it. They're like, should be in stock in September, but it's already September 12th, right? So hopefully I can get one of those, and then I'm going to build this thing up, Do
you have to program it?
Yeah, they give you some code. So there's some starter code that you can use, but it does a lot. Like you can do delays and reverbs and chorus and distortion. There's like all sorts of things you can program in there. So I don't know. I'm going to give it a try. I don't know about anything about it, and I haven't really done anything like it. So this will be a first, but I got the board. So I think this is the same one that Steve has. So It's got like 6 knobs and 4 switches. And then I don't know if you can see it there, but like this 2 rows right there, the chip, like the microcontroller is like this big rectangle that sits right here,
So does that have like the 50 pins or something like that go in there?
It's got a whole bunch of pins. Yeah, I forget how many, but and then it has some other parts too. So like it looks like it has an op amp, like a dual op amp. So it's probably got an input and an output buffer on the op amp. And then it has some switches and pots that you can connect to the microcontroller to set, settings, right? So anyway, I got this. I'm going to try and build this thing. I gave one of the pedals away to Casey's band. So, I donated, it's my donation to the furthering of music. I don't know what they did with it, but I just gave them a pedal because
I'm sure they'll make good use of it.
Yeah. I know, right? It's a fuzz pedal, but fuzz pedal, right? They could do some easy listening music.
That's right.
Actually, it's more of a big muff. I don't know if you could do easy listening with the big muff. Maybe.
I think you could.
I want to hear about that in the comments. If anybody can point out where the big muff was used on an easy listening track.
Yeah.
Right.
I want to hear it. I want links.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm going to try and explore this thing, and
that's
then,
great. I hope that when you're ready to debut it, I hope that we'll be able to get Steve back on the show to talk about his experience with that.
Oh yeah,
that device.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is you could do a lot of different things. So you could make a pedal like a delay reverb thing, or someone else could do like some weird filters distortion, or I don't think there's a lot of possibilities. So I'm going to give it a try if I can get the chip. I got to order the chip. And so that's that one project there. And then what else do I got going on? I guess I still have a couple other circuit boards that I haven't built yet. I'm going to try and order some boards, like PC boards, from this company called PCBWay. Right.
Okay.
And so I'm going to see how that goes, but they use a different, like I was using Osh Park, and Osh Park is pretty cheap for what you get, but they're a lot more expensive than these other services. The thing is, like, they make it super easy because you just send them an Eagle file. It's like you don't have to do any work to prep the files. You just send them the files, and then they produce the boards for you, right? And you have to buy at least 3, so you can buy a small number. But cost-wise, it's pretty cheap, but it's not as cheap as PCBWay. Like PCBWay is like really cheap, but you got to buy more boards, and then they don't take the Eagle files. You have to convert your Eagle files into like Gerber files, and then they have to be set up a certain way. So there's a little more effort involved using them. So I think my goal there is that they also have a service that solders a bunch of the parts for you.
I was going to ask about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I want to try and get into that and see if I can get some boards that would be like at least partially assembled.
Right. But you have to use the parts that they have.
Yeah, they have a list of parts, so you can't just pick anything. You have to pick from their list of what they supply, right? And the parts that they solder or pre-solder for you have to be these surface mount parts. So they're not all the through hole parts that you use, you would have to solder yourself.
Okay.
So that means that all the stuff that goes off board, like wiring, like you're gonna have to solder that, and pots, like that has to be soldered. Like they're not gonna do it. Right. And then if you have,
that would speed up your process quite a bit.
yeah, maybe, yeah, right. So anyway, like that's kind of another thing that I'm working on, so we'll see what happens with that. And then I've been waiting to, I want to mill like kind of a nameplate. I want to try and engrave a nameplate, and just for a pedal, just to see what it looks like. It might be a new style for pedals. I don't know.
And then how would you mount it?
Good question. I guess you got a couple choices. You could use glue. Doesn't sound too exciting to me, kind of messy and maybe not as permanent. Maybe you can get some pretty permanent glue. I don't know, right? You could use rivets. So the rivet sounds okay, but maybe the rivets don't look that great, because pop rivets are kind of just like aluminum, And then I guess the other choice would be to get some screws.
Oh, yes.
And just mount it maybe with some hex bolts or something looked really industrial,
Yeah, or you could tap the screw holes and just
screw maybe
right into the box.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That'd be more work though. You'd have to do the tapping, right?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. So anyway, that's like an experiment that's going to come up, I have to make the digital like SVG kind of drawings, figure out all the measurements, and then somehow set up the mill to mill it. I think I'm gonna have to, like, since the plates will be pretty flat, like there's a little bracket on there for doing the boxes. So I'll have to take that off, put the bed back on it, and then stick, like with some double stick tape, like stick the material to the bed. Right. And I guess I'm not like super great with the mill, but I guess what you do is you measure the thickness of the material, and the tape has a thickness. It's like, 0.003 of an inch. It's really thin, but you calculate that into the height so that you mill down to the tape, but not into the bed of the of the mill, right? So anyway, so I gotta like calculate that out. So like those kind of problems kind of hold me up. Like I could
see how that would be.
Yeah, I could sit around thinking about something like that for 6 months or a year before I actually take action. So anyway, but that'll maybe come up too.
Yeah. Well, it'll be a good solution for bigger pedals that won't fit in the mill.
Maybe, yeah. That's what I was thinking, right? I thought too, it might be kind of cool. You could put a nameplate or like a logo or something, and then like you could just stick one on every pedal,
Sure. Yeah.
That might be kind of cool. I don't know. I just got to make the first one. If I make the first one, then that'll kind of reveal like what the process is and see if it's worthwhile to do more,
Yep. Yeah. Cost benefit analysis.
Oh yeah, we totally do that over here
yeah.
Yeah, we're all about the cost benefit analysis, and I got spreadsheets for days.
I'm sure.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, well, don't you have all your capacitors and resistors in a spreadsheet? No, you actually do though. You have one of your germanium transistors.
Oh, I put the germanium transistors in the spreadsheet. I did that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did do that. And I got
totally makes sense to me.
I got a new one of these things too. I just couldn't
good.
live without the old one. It was broken, so I got a new one. So anyway, so this was kind of an improvement here. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, cool. Should we wrap up the show here today?
Yeah, I think we've covered everything. I'll put the links to the media that we talked about in the description, and check them out, and send us links to your easy listening projects with Fuzz in them. I'd love to hear that.
Oh yeah, I want to hear that. Yeah, we got to hear it. Okay.
All right.
See you later.
All right. Thanks for joining us as always. We'll see you next time.